going. There we go. Okay. It looks like we are live. So hello, everyone. I'm Ashley Gadiano. I'm the Director of External Affairs at the Connecticut Institute for Refugees and Immigrants. This is the second month of the CIRI Connect forums, and today we're here to discuss Connecticut's housing resources. And while we'll touch on all of the work of the Department of Housing in Connecticut, the focus of this conversation will certainly be on the resources that exist for the populations that CIRI serves. Immigrants, refugees, survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking. As those of you who are watching right now know, this will be live streamed on Facebook and then will be placed on CIRI's YouTube page and website within the next few days. There is the ability while you're watching to type questions in the comment box on Facebook, and I can see those while we are going. So please feel free to type comments, questions, and I'll read those in when it's appropriate. So we'll jump right in, and I'll let each of you quickly introduce yourselves, and then we'll go into questions. So if we want to start with you, Commissioner, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Ashley. Thank you for inviting me. Seila Mosquera-Bruno, Commissioner for Connecticut Department of Housing.
Terrific. And Susan?
Great. Thanks, Ashley. And thank you so much, Commissioner, for joining us today. I'm Susan Schnitzer, the President and CEO of CIRI.
Wonderful. So we're going to start with you, Commissioner. Tell us a little bit about the work that the Department of Housing does here in Connecticut. And I realize that that's a very broad question, but if you can give a little bit of an overview for those who maybe don't know kind of the breadth of the work you do, that would be great.
I know, I was going to say, do I have an hour?
We'll give you subsequent hours. How about that?
No, I'll be brief. So the Department of Housing, we do a couple of things. The individual and family support programs, which is the one that we're working with the homelessness population, undocumented, and other resources that we have for families like rapid rehousing. We also have the RAP, which is the vouchers from the state, and manage about 5,000 vouchers from Section 8 vouchers. So we act like a public housing, if you will. And then that's one part of the job, and we call it that individual and family support programs. And then we have the other one that you might not be that much interested, but is like close to my heart, because I was a developer in my previous life, and that is to provide resources to build affordable housing, whether it's multifamily or homeownership. And also we provide resources for first-time home buyers, as well as counseling for some of the organizations that work with us.
Terrific. And again, I know that that is a very, very high-level summary. All you have to do is go on the Department of Housing website to see how many different programs exist under your umbrella. So again, I know we're going to focus a lot on COVID and the resources that the Department of Housing provides to the immigrant community. But we're sitting here in the middle of COVID, and we know firsthand the havoc that COVID has wreaked on people's lives. We've certainly seen that firsthand at CIRI. We've seen unemployment skyrocket, income inequality widen, certainly impacting the communities that we serve and the cities that we serve clients within. I got this, the Connecticut Mirror reported in January that 20% of Connecticut households were behind on rent payments. So we know, again, that people are struggling with this. So as the Department of Housing Commissioner, what have you seen throughout the state when it comes to COVID in your work?
So actually, first of all, at the initial of COVID, we were able to deconcentrate shelters just to try to protect all our individuals. So we had about 800 justified hotels that we contracted out with, even before we got any resources from the federal government. The governor gave us the resources so that we could protect anybody that needed to be protected. So from them, we went to provide assistance for the CANS. The Coordinated Access Network is several organizations working across the state, and we provided resources for food and hazard pay so that they will be able to work. They were putting their lives at risk, if you will. So we also provide the resources for it's called, for the program that is called rapid rehousing. so that if you needed a security deposit, you needed a first month's rent, you could use that and find an apartment. And we had several organizations, again, working with families that were in need. And those resources are available to anyone that needs it, regardless whether they have documents or not.
Okay. We certainly have seen that here, and so I'll turn to Susan for a second. I know this is an area where clients struggle. It's part of what brought us to this partnership with the Department of Housing that we'll talk about in a few minutes. But can you talk a little bit about the impact that we've seen among our clients, and specifically as it relates to heightened housing insecurity?
Sure, of course, Ashley. So, housing insecurity is something that a lot of our clients face on an ongoing basis, with many of them hovering around or even below the poverty level. Like many folks, during COVID, our clients have lost jobs or had reduction in work hours. With remote schooling, that puts additional stress on parents that maybe were utilizing the school to watch their kids, right, while they could work. And then also to have affordable daycare and to feel safe sending your children to daycare. That's had a large impact on our clients, especially women who are looking for jobs. And we see clients more and more having to make the decision between paying their rent, getting the food they need, paying their utilities, and covering some of their basic needs. So access to community supports have been vital during this time, and there have been many funders and partners that have helped us with food, with funding. But this partnership with Department of Housing has really moved the needle for our clients who are undocumented and who don't have access to a lot of the resources that some other folks do. And in addition to that, it's put us in touch with a whole community of advocacy groups that have really been able to help us and our clients during this time.
Great. So we'll dive into that program in 1 second, but I know, Commissioner, that thanks to your office, thanks to Governor Lamont, we've certainly seen an immense amount of funding for rental assistance programs. I think close to $40 million. So if you can talk a little bit about what programs do exist and where that funding has been allocated, and then we'll go into the program that we've partnered with you on.
Yeah, sure. So we have provided actually more than that. Just
Okay.
Overall, we had about almost $35 million through the CAN system for housing, for diversion programs, to that small amount of money that you might need to get an apartment, and then to even subsidy for 6 months if you're sick and you're still trying to get on your feet. So that overall, and for winter conditions, right now, if somebody is homeless and doesn't have a place to live, they can call 211 and they can be placed in a hotel for those cold winter conditions, as we call it. So that amount is about $35 million that we have deployed to the community and to the organizations that are working with us. And then on the rental relief program that we run, we deploy about $28 million to families and individuals that qualify for that program. Now, the federal government had made available about $235 million for rent relief for families up to 80% of the area median income. We are working diligent right now to set up the new program with a little more automated assistance, because the program does come with some admin money. In the past, we did not have any admin, so we were trying to utilize our own staff, the
Right.
Connecticut Finance Authority staff, because we wanted to get as much money out to the people that need it instead of the administration fees. So this time we will have some resources so that we can make more accessible and available to many of the families that we have. So we are anticipating probably sometime in March, the beginning of March, to launch that new program.
That's terrific, because that's obviously a significant amount of funding, well beyond what you've been able to deploy so far.
Yeah.
Can you speak just briefly, and then I'll go to Susan, about some of the organizations you work with? I'm assuming you work with a lot of community-based organizations and nonprofits throughout the state. Is that accurate?
Yes, we have about 60 organizations that we provide funding. That includes from shelters to service providers, And we continue working with that, in addition to now the partnership that we created with CIRI and some of the community-based organizations. But our goal is basically to work with several of the nonprofits. And for the next pot of money that we're going to be deploying, we are working with the housing counseling agencies to help, because we also want to make sure that if there are other resources available to these individuals and families, are accessible to them too.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we keep alluding to the rental assistance program we have partnered with you on. Susan, do you want to start with that? And then Commissioner, you can add to that as you see fit.
Sure.
Sure. Excellent. Great. So before CIRI even came into this project, there were a number of advocacy groups that worked really hard in collaboration with the Department of Housing to ensure that there was some money set aside for this project to provide rental assistance to undocumented individuals and families in Connecticut. The amount of money going directly to support housing for folks was $2.5 million. We are almost done. Probably by the end of this month, we are working through our wait lists. And we think the project has been very successful. We've had very strong relationships and really good conversations and information sharing with our partner organizations working on this project. So we could make sure that the money was accessible to the people who needed it, but also where CIRI comes in is to make sure that we're compliant. One of the reasons we were brought into this project is our long-time work with the immigrant population, but also our expertise in developing and managing programs as well. So it has been quite an experience. And I'd like to mention our programs. I think some of them may be on the call right now. Unida Latina La Acción, otherwise known as ULA New Haven, Connecticut Workers Center, Make the Road Connecticut, Building One Community, Homeless Hospitality Center, Connecticut Coalition Against Domestic Violence, and Connecticut Legal Services. What we were able to do as a group, in addition to getting funds out, is to share resources. So we did have trainings on how to connect with domestic violence services, know your rights, how to connect with legal services. But Connecticut Legal Services did multiple trainings on landlord-tenant mediation. So we were really able to get the money out, but also grow as a group and as a collaboration. And we designed the program. We are all committed to continuous improvement. And when you all have the same goal, it makes it easy to work as partners. And our goal is to make sure that people who don't have access to some traditional assistance are actually getting the help they need during COVID and moving beyond COVID as well.
Absolutely. Commissioner, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. Susan, before you came, there was a group that I came after that. But it has been a great partnership. I couldn't be happy with the system, setting up the systems. We allow to be as flexible as possible. Always, we have to think about the compliance and the reporting that I have to do after. So it has been, I think, a good experience. And I think that the sharing of resources has been so important, especially making sure that everybody is in the same page about rights and responsibilities with landlords and how to do that, because it's an education. We always need to take this opportunity to also educate our families on what they can do and also the responsibilities that they have as tenants. And as I said, I mean, the moratorium in general was to allow for that gap to be able for us to implement some of our programs, but it's also the responsibility of the tenant to make sure that at least they pay something towards the rents if they have, or talk to the landlord, right? And that has been always, let's talk to the landlord and they will understand, help will come. So we wanted to make sure that everybody's suffering, right? We need to make sure that we all work together towards the same common goal.
Right, and just for some perspective, with that fund, as of probably 2 weeks ago, I know that we had distributed funds to 865 families, reaching more than 2,445 immigrants. So that money went a long way. And Susan, you mentioned waitlists. So do we still have waitlists? Is there still an obvious need for rental relief right now within the immigrant community?
There most definitely is. All of our partners and CIRI, we do have wait lists, and some folks that we're not able to get to. And that number, we have written wait lists, and then we also all continue to receive calls asking for assistance. So we know, and we hear almost every day of people calling us asking if the program's going to reopen. But we know we probably have about 350 people that are ready to go. That we need to start moving forward when the time is right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Commissioner, why was it so important for the Department of Housing to provide rental relief to the immigrant population? I know that wasn't a population that was served in all forms of rental relief, including some of the federal programs. So why was it so important for your office to really focus on this population and make sure that they had access to financial assistance?
So two things, Ashley. I'm an immigrant. I came from Ecuador many years back. I was lucky that I have documents. So I was able to build a career and be where I am. And that is just a commitment that I had to make to many of the immigrants community that come here, and they're not as lucky as I was having documents. And second of all, the governor wanted to make sure that we respond to everybody's need. And he was able to help us and support my department to be able to deploy the resources that we had.
That's great. We're lucky to have, again, I said this earlier, but we're lucky to have both your office and a governor who's committed to serving all people within the state, regardless of status or race or ethnicity. So we are very, very grateful that this was able to begin months ago, almost a year ago at this point, and hope that it can continue. Are there other programs and resources out of your department that can support the populations we serve that we haven't already mentioned? As you know, we also serve survivors of torture and human trafficking and work closely in the domestic violence space. So are there other resources that exist that people who are listening should know about?
All of the resources that I mentioned that goes through the CAN system are resources that can be utilized for all the groups that you mentioned.
Wonderful.
Great. And I know we're cranking along. Megan just said on here, we're very lucky that the Commissioner and CIRI have collaborated with community organizations to reach 800 plus immigrant families. So we agree, Megan. We are lucky.
And if that's the Megan I'm thinking of, she's one of our partners too.
I thought that might be the case.
Yes, and she has. And I do want to add that that Commissioner and her team have been so helpful to us in every step of the way. And we are eternally grateful for that.
So that's for selfish reasons.
That's okay.
That's allowed.
That's quite all right. We'll take it.
One is that we want to make sure that we succeed and we say, hey, we can do this.
Yep. And we did.
Absolutely.
We did do it.
Let me just add to that, Ashley, because many people might be thinking, or they already have a questions, what next? Are there going to be more resources to the undocumented? And to this group that we have formed, which I think is just an awesome way to work with these families. So we're working on two ends. One is that the resources from the federal government for the rent relief, we have asked the question because the first initial requirements they mentioned a family needed to have, households needed to have social security numbers. So we posed the question, and actually Congressman Himes and the governor's office has sent those questions to Treasurer, and we're waiting for a response. Because they say yes, but they list the requirements that is no, right? So we are trapping that. And
Right.
while we're building the system, we're trying to wait for that those answers. If the answer is no, then we are working with OPM and the governors to see if we can get more resources from the state to continue the work. So it's not like we're gonna leave it there. I have been working with my team and OPM, and hopefully by the end of this week we will have some answers.
That's terrific. And is that a program that you hope can continue through, what I will put in quotes, the end of COVID? Or is that something you see as a long-term need and hope that we can facilitate well beyond when, we're vaccinated and kind of back to whatever post-COVID world we live in?
So that would be the perfect world, right? But as I take one thing at a time. From resources, I said, let's start with this, because money will come and programs will make sure that are established. Yes, the more long-term goal will be to have programs that we can have going and moving forward, and it might be the opportunity to do that if we demonstrate. And that's one of the reasons also why we want to make sure that we have a program that is stable, that is reliable, and that people believe in the program, and we do not do things that will jeopardize the seriousness of these programs, because as this population it's different ways to serve them. So there are always questions about it. So once we establish that reputation that this is a good vehicle to be able to provide these services and these resources to these families, I'm hopeful that we could come out with something.
Great. And obviously that, we want to show that we can be appropriate stewards of the money, so that, with a population that sometimes is unfairly and unjustly targeted, we can make the case that this is extremely beneficial, both for them and the well-being of the state. Susan, if people are interested in, accessing these funds, and I know we've talked about wait lists, what is it you would tell folks right now who are hearing and saying, I have an immigrant, family that needs this money? What should they do right now in the interim?
So I think for other social service organizations, get the information, get the contact information, the name, whatever the potential client is willing to give you, and hold tight and stay tuned, because as soon as we know anything, we'll put the information out there.
Okay, terrific. And is there anything, Commissioner, right now that people can do to help advocate for or support the issue, or is it just kind of a waiting game and you all have it covered and we should just tell people to stand by?
I would say to stand by. If you talk to some of your legislators, just let them know that CIRI did a great job with the partners, with the community-based organizations. Always just talk about the program in the way that it has helped families, so that we have the support to continue on with the program. But other than that, we are working proactively with the governor and OPM. He hasn't forgotten about this. I have not let him forget.
I'm sure.
But yes,
okay.
We will let you know as soon as I get answers.
Perfect. And so again, being respectful of everyone's time, we're right on schedule. So I'm going to wrap up with one question, and then I'll, again, remind folks where they can find this after the fact. So we're almost a year into the pandemic, just a few weeks shy of having been locked down as a state for a whole year. And I know that we've learned a tremendous amount. We know the pain points that exist in our current system. We know that things weren't working in many ways before, and we need to move forward differently. So when you look at your work, big picture, what lesson do you hope we take away and carry into a post-pandemic reality? We'll go Commissioner, and then we can do Susan.
Wonderful.
So I think the biggest thing is how we have been able to collaborate and share resources. I think is what if we can continue doing that through whatever regular life will get to.
Right.
Not the same, but it's about that. It's caring about one another, is the collaboration with one another, is share resources, whatever we have. And I think that's the only way that we can support each other.
Perfect.
Um,
Susan?
Same answer, the power of collaboration, and being open to other ways of doing things that may not be your own. And that is really, that's the biggest thing we've learned, and what we can do, as the commissioner said, when we're supporting each other and working together.
Yeah. I'm going to end with a question real quick that we just got from Megan. Hi, Megan. Have other states in the U.S. provided, she wrote, provided federal rental assistance to all regardless of immigrant status? Or is this something that Connecticut has really paved the way on?
No, to tell you the truth, I don't know. We heard that Chicago was utilizing other resources. They were utilizing state resources as we did, and that is because of the requirement of the Treasury Department. So California was doing also providing actually they did fundraising. They had a couple of foundations doing fundraising.
Okay. And all of that was state money because, again, the federal government was requiring a social security number, which
for the CIRI they had other requirements, but the social security was one of them.
Okay.
So in a way, when the federal government put these programs out with not much guidance, then you have the internal, the attorney general from HUD coming and doing reviews, and you get trapped into that, right? So they left it, they don't say no, but they don't say yes. It's up to the state to manage that. So we're trying to manage it in a responsible way.
Absolutely.
Resources that if we couldn't use federal government, then we use state resources. And also some of our foundations, I did have a conversation with a group of foundations, and we mentioned that we were waiting for some answers and that we will be looking towards them to helping us out with this challenge, if you will.
Which is certainly fitting. I mean, I know that we received a good deal of financial support from foundations who recognized that basic needs were not being met, whether that was rent or utilities or food, and provided support. So we have some great community foundations throughout the state of Connecticut, and are lucky to have them as partners alongside the government as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do either of you have anything else to add, because we're 2 minutes away from being done?
I just want to say thank you, Ashley, for having us both here today. And I want to thank the commissioner and her team and our whole team working on this initiative. We've done some really tremendous work together, and we look forward to keeping it moving forward in whatever shape that takes.
Yeah, no, the same, Ashley and Susan. Thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to be among friends, and really looking forward to continue this relationship. And thank you to all the partners and everybody that worked and still are working very hard trying to help. So thank you, everyone.
Wonderful. So again, this has been recorded. I will put this on our website in the next 2-ish days. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to the people who are chiming in now with comments. We're really grateful for this partnership and look forward to moving it forward over the next few weeks.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.